LIP, Learning Improvement Program, partnering APSCERT, Samagra Shiksha, Andhra Pradesh, co-partnered by Center for Innovations in Public Systems, UNICEF, and Save the Children. Dear teachers, this is the timetable for the post-lunch session. It is subject specific, so we are looking into English reader. In the fifth session, we'll have a teaching period and we have a short discussion even. And later we have the final session, that is on practice period, and we'll have later a brief interaction to clarify all our doubts. We've got some recorded videos, and also we'll have some offline interactions too. Good luck. LIP, Learning Improvement Program. We have had enough discussion in the morning sessions regarding this LIP. Our children are going to be blessed ones because this program is going to cater the needs of each and every child at our schools. We do have some children who needs certain support. Let us not label them with slow learners, but let's label them saying they need support. So teacher need to support in extra hours too. So that is what all about this program LIP. Now a few words about three things. One, Learning Improvement Program, LIP, a brief recap, and later we'll let us see teaching learning strategies, and let us also look into lesson plan steps in accordance with LIP, focusing on subject specific competencies. Now, teachers, we already have had discussion on Learning Improvement Program, LIP, in the morning. Let's recap a few points. What is this LIP again? The program is for students at upper primary stage, that is for classes 6th to 8th. And the focus is on foundational literacy improvement in both mother tongue and English and foundational mathematical abilities. Let us focus here on, especially, it is aimed at achieving grade or class specific learning outcomes at all the curricular areas of classes 6 to 8. Major objectives of LIP. It actually focuses to establish the baseline on the effluent competencies of each child based on the survey conducted recently by Pratham. So most of you know what Pratham is doing. So they have conducted a baseline and then found the students need some support. To improve foundation literacy skills in both mother tongue and English, that is especially focusing on reading comprehension and writing. It is also a major objective of LIP to improve grade or class specific learning outcomes in all curricular areas: math, science, social, Telugu, English. So in this program, all these 5 math, science, social, Telugu, English are covered for the improvement of our little ones at schools. Number 2, teaching learning strategies. LIP has its own teaching learning strategies. Let us look into these. LIP has got a very specific and a categorization of teaching periods and practice periods. So LIP believes in having a practice period extra to the teaching period. However, every teacher is giving enough practice in the classroom, but still LIP specifically designs its lesson plans for enough practice to be given to the students. In our teaching learning strategies, we got a very important, interesting thing, that is we are mapping existing materials that are there in the school. Like we're taking the same lessons, same text that we have and not deviating from the text. So incorporating the syllabus that is given to the students is being taken into the consideration of designing LIP lesson plans. So there is no specially designed thing from outside source, but it is using the same material which is there in the school. The third important thing here is using the same lesson plan format suggested by APSCRT. So taking the same material, same text, at the same time taking the same lesson plan format. We have a newly circulated lesson plan that every teacher has already filled in, having 3 columns: I do, we do, and you do. So beautifully we have tried to incorporate a few things into that one so that we could translate the lesson so beautifully. So now the extra thing that we're going to do this LIP is having practice periods, enough practice periods incorporating into that lesson plan. So we are adding teaching and practice periods into it without deviating. So we are writing a little more in detail. So that is it. That is in the form of I do, we do, you do. So we are not at all deviating from APSCRT suggested lesson plan format. So let us keep this thing as a underlined point. And last one, LIP has its own monitoring techniques and monitoring reviews and feedbacks. So classroom observations, children performing testing will happen to see whether the child is improving in his studies, in his acquisition of language and mathematical abilities through LIP. And school libraries are going to be strengthened because there need to be a development of reading habits too. The important teaching learning strategy or activities is already we have been using these terms in our lesson plan, which is recently got approved by APSCRT and circulated among every teacher. That is I do, that is teacher doing something in the classroom. When a new concept is being brought to the student, the teacher has to do certain things. So I do part is the teacher's part. Look there, the teacher is trying to develop or construct knowledge among the students. So he is giving a new concept there. It's direct instruction, it's demonstration, it is modeling, it is in a way calling think aloud. The what teacher thinks is being spoken out. So that is very, very important in this I do. And there is the second thing, that is where teacher tries to help the student. That is we do. The teacher and the student has an interaction and they try to practice. So from here practice starts. So what the teacher has taught will be taken in the form of more examples and then they start working together. So that is the we do part. That is interactive. It's more like there are checks, there are prompts, the teacher prompts a lot and then gives cues so that the child will try to finish it. And then the final one is you do part. You do part is very, very important. It is actually individual performance by the student. So here if you could understand one interesting thing, that the teacher gives enough freedom for the student to practice more on what the teacher has taught. So this is you do part, that is students part. So they provide, teacher provides feedback there and then students assumes full kind of learning there and he got responsibility also there. So it is something like in I do part, the teacher has sole responsibility, and here in we do part both of them share this responsibility, and finally in you do part the students take the responsibility of learning or practicing through practice. So this is a wonderful strategy that we've been following already. We got the lesson plan in this format. So here I do will be the teaching period or teaching instruction that is going from the teacher, and we do and you do are the parts of students. So students try to work there and they produce something. So that's the final outcome that the teacher wants to have. And we'll have detailed kind of a discussion later on what we do in I do especially, and in we do what steps are there, and in you do what the student is going to do. So how do we write it in the lesson plan? We have got lesson plan models. So let us discuss more about these things in the next slides. To extend my thought on I do, we do, you do, I would say this is a model of teaching which is also known as gradual release of responsibility. So there is a model called gradual release of responsibility from the teacher to the student. So the teacher has got sole responsibility in the beginning, but later it goes to the student who holds the responsibility of producing something in the classroom. And it is a strategy that includes, I do part is the demonstration part, that is teacher doing it. And when we do, there is a lot of prompt by the teacher and the student gets information, he gets some support from the teacher. And in the practice part, the student alone does a great work. So that is practice, more practice. So demonstration, that is I do part, prompt is the we do part, and practice is the you do part. Let's look at this beautiful picture. So it shows about a gradual release of responsibility. Look at that, the I do is very little actually, and you do is more. So that is more practice should be given to the student. That's what LIP believes in. Look at the other picture here. The model in the I do part is, it is modeling part. The teacher models it, where the students watch. And later in the guided, that is we do part, everyone like student and the teacher works together. And then in the independent part, that is the last part, that is you do part, the student alone works. So the teacher starts watching at the student. So this is what should happen at our schools. Like instead students watching at us, let us watch what students are doing. Do you think it's going to be a wonderful thing if this happens? And the third thing, that is lesson plan steps. We are eagerly looking at how to prepare a lesson plan. We've been actually used to I do, we do, you do, and then we've got a few points that we've been filling up in it. Now we are going to be more specific, what the teacher should speak and what the student should receive and what the student should do. So all these things are specifically designed, especially we are even incorporating this teacher's part and the student's part too. So let us look into the details. Every lesson plan should have two things in it: teaching period, that is I do part, and practice period, that is we do and you do parts. So let us carefully fill in these two parts, especially teaching and practice periods. Let's have a look at teaching period and practice periods. What this all about? The classroom observations and quality surveys show that entire period time is being focused only to teach and no focus on practice. So therefore, it is proposed to provide teaching and practice period separately. So the classroom being multi-level, the practices and activities will be based on their needs and levels, that is FLN and subject-specific competencies. Now let us discuss briefly on learning outcomes, prior concepts, skills, and finally English transaction modules. Let's take a lesson plan and then discuss. Now let us look at one lesson from class 6, unit 5. The name of the lesson is At the Vegetable Shop. So let us look into this lesson and try to write one lesson plan. Let us look at this chart. This is a chart which talks about the components and the periods required for the lesson at the vegetable shop. So to transact the lesson, we need 3 periods for picture interaction, 6 periods for 3 reading slots. It depends on the size of the lesson. It depends on the complexity of the text to divide the number of periods there. And we're given 2 periods for the vocabulary part and 3 periods for the grammatical awareness, 2 periods for creative expression, and 2 periods for talking time, and 1 each period for listening, reading it yourself, and study skills. And now here are learning outcomes for the lesson At the Vegetable Shop from class 6, unit 5. So these are some of the learning outcomes. So listening and speaking, there are 2 learning outcomes like giving advices in different contexts and using of yan and ng sounds, how they are different. And then we'll also look into one major area, that is reading comprehension, which we are focusing a lot now. So it reads, they can read to seek information from flowchart even, not only in the text but also in the flowchart. And vocabulary related items are also there in the lesson. So the exercises given in the text, there are like synonyms, antonyms, and various other exercises are given. When it comes to grammatical awareness, they can write grammatically correct sentences using past continuous tense, and there is passive form which is to be used in different situations, that is also covered in this lesson. And the creative writing part, they got short paragraph to write using hints and picture based story, and they even try to comprehend the information that is given in the tabular format, flow chart or pie chart, even bar graph and so on. So these are the learning outcomes for this lesson which are identified. We can find these things in our textbook also. Please go through the text. Before we transact the lesson, we need to have prior concepts or skills that are required for the student. The student should possess these skills. So to make them understand, to make them comprehend the lesson at the vegetable shop, the student should be able to initially read textual and non-textual material and infer meanings of unfamiliar words using dictionary. So they should be able to write answers to textual and non-textual questions. At least this skills should be there among the students. So they should be able to express their opinions, ideas, thoughts and so on. And they should be able to draw out main ideas. These are probably like little more expecting from the students, but these skills are to be there to make them understand. So it is difficult, right, for a child who doesn't possess these prior concepts. How can you make them understand? How can you make them comprehend the lesson that they're going to read? So the lesson requires these prior skills at least beforehand. So for that, LIP has got a plan. So there is teaching period, also there is practice period. So there is I do part, there is we do part, and there is you do part. There is very important thing that is to be examined and also to be closely looking at. We know the process of transacting a lesson. There are a few steps. Before we go into those steps, let us call a topic that is to discussed, that is modular classroom transaction. See, this is nothing but English transaction modules we call. What is this module? A module is a pedagogically construed as a sequence of learning activities that finally should lead to construction of knowledge. The outcome needs to be embedded in appropriate discourse. So this is very, very important thing. Previous slides we have seen I do, we do, you do. So that is a gradual progress of laying responsibility on the shoulders of the student to understand a text. And we have also seen in another slide, the prior concepts are very, very important. The prior concepts students are missing. And let us also look into the transactional process that we used to follow. We cannot teach anything in isolation. We cannot make students understand anything in isolation, isn't it? So when students can't understand anything or learn anything in isolation, then we need some context to be given. So there should be some kind of interaction. There should be something like production of language more than a sentence level. That is nothing but discourse. So construction of knowledge, construction of language should happen in the form of discourses. For example, making an oral presentation has so many things to keep in mind, right? The characters and the nature and everything. So there are a few things that we will be discussing in the upcoming slides. How to present orally, how to narrate, and how to write a paragraph, how to write a sentence and then leading into paragraph and so on. Modular classroom transaction, these English transaction modules are theme, picture-based interaction, production of oral discourses based on the blackboard writing. The blackboard writing is very, very important. So when we show a picture and try to ask them to write, ask them a few questions, they'll come up with keywords, they'll give some words, and those words have to be written on the board, and then make those words into phrases, those phrases into sentences, right? So blackboard writing is very, very important. Now, narration. This is another module. Like, we need to narrate what is there on the board. The teacher should be able to make it as a story even, right? And then reading part is very, very another important module. And then writing a discourse, anything. It can be story, it can be letter, it can be a kind of a slogan or anything. And finally, editing is very important part or module that the teacher should be very closely looking into it. These modules can be mutually exclusive or there can be a link between each module. So we have got a few processes that are to be kept in mind to transact these modules. So after having seen what are the learning outcomes, what are the prior concepts that the student should have, and what kind of procedure or strategy should we have, like I do, we do, and you do, and also we have seen how we should have process it in the form of modules or in the phases. And let us now look into the lesson plan. So these are the screenshots of a lesson plan. For the full complete lesson plan, so you can refer LIP English Handbook. Please refer to teachers LIP English Handbook. You got 3 model lesson plans there. For class 6, 1 model, and for class 7 there is 1 model lesson plan, and for class 8 there is 1 model lesson plan. So please refer those for the complete information. So these are the screenshots to just give you a glimpse of how a lesson plan looks. Now over to Mr. Madhu Babu, SA English Srikakulam sir. The topic that is going to take is pre-reading, that is teaching periods and practice periods. Over to Madhu Babu sir.